What's good, Atlanta? This is the Blog and Dirty podcast, where bird is the word if you haven't heard. I'm joined today by an extra special guest. I've got Geoffrey Knox of Inside the Eagles here to help us unpack the Falcons' next game versus the Philadelphia Eagles on Monday Night Football. Geoffrey, how you doing, man?
Great, man. I appreciate you inviting me on. I feel like Floyd Mayweather. I feel sexy right now. Like, I'm young, I'm pretty, I hit hard. I'm in the best shape of my life. I finally got an invite to the Blog and Dirty podcast, man. Like, this is your fault, John. I feel like you should have invited me on sooner.
I know, man. Like, I feel so good. I'm about to turn 35 and I can technically run for president here in like a few hours. So this is great. Yeah.
You might be a better option than the two we got. So
I got no skeletons in my closet. All I've got is just really bad sports takes.
Gotcha. You're officially my write-in candidate.
Perfect. You know, people, they have to count that. That's the best part.
Yeah.
So we're going to start today. We're going to get effing set. And with a little bit of Richard Gere is a hero of mine staying too. You know, I cover the Falcons. Jeff obviously covers the Eagles. So we're going to learn a little bit more about his team, what he saw in like week one and kind of what to expect here in week two. So you guys played in Brazil. That was wild. Like, what was your kind of thoughts with that? And how you feeling about the Eagles through week one?
I respect what the NFL is trying to do. I think the one thing that maybe pro basketball has on them that, the NFL was probably like to erase is the fact that, they have more of that worldwide branding.
Right.
You look at Twitter's followers for NBA, and you look at NFL's followers for the NFL, and this is obviously the most popular game that we have in our country, but that isn't the case everywhere else, which is why they tried Pathways and a national program, things of that nature. So from a business standpoint, I get it. You want to try to explain that global reach and everything. Sucks for us. Home games, we want them all to be at Lincoln Financial Field, but we'll take it. But the overall product was good. I was kind of disappointed we didn't get to see Anita at halftime. That was the halftime show. We got like about 15 seconds of that. But to answer your question, man, great start to the season from a fan perspective, especially after watching the Baltimore game with Kansas City. You couldn't ask for more, man. Two great games that came down to the last possession in each one of them. That's what fans want, and hopefully it gave Brazil a show.
Yeah, they got a fantastic one. First game in Brazil at Sao Paulo and everything like that. Just for the record, I did pick the Eagles to win the NFC East this year. I've got them winning multiple playoff games and everything like that. But that kind of brings up another point. Producer Sean's bringing this up. The field. You're dealing with like a soccer stadium, and it's a different grass, it's a different pitch. You're dealing with like 5'7" guys who are lower to the ground, and you're dealing with like 6 foot somethings, 300-pound guys. We saw Jordan Love get hurt. Obviously, that was horrible for the Packers. But like, what were your kind of thoughts about like the soccer pitch with the stadium and everything?
Obviously, this is one of those things I guess you have to work through. I wasn't a big fan of the stadium. Wasn't a big fan of the. There are two different games. You got soccer and pro football. Played in our our country and everything. So not a huge fan of it. I'm more thankful about the fact that we escape with minimal injuries as possible, because that's always key in a game like that. Personally, I'm still a little bitter about a couple of years ago. I'm more concerned about that field that we had in Super Bowl 57. If we got time to talk about that, I mean, we got a Kansas City field guy. We got the Kansas City Chiefs. They don't seem to be slipping, and we're slipping all over the place. I know that's not what you asked me and everything, man, but I'm still a little bitter about that. So I just wanted to take this opportunity on your platform to bring that up.
That's perfect. I mean, I'm a big field expert myself. I mean, I'm a Georgia alum. So every time we go and play Knoxville versus Tennessee, I'm just terrified for my life. I'm like, I called Nick Chubb tearing his ACL like a couple years ago. I'm like, oh no, there's some places, MetLife, it's scary. There's other places around the country where like the grass is not that great, but thankfully y'all were able to come out of that pretty unscathed. How are you feeling about the team heading into week 2 here on Monday Night Football in general?
I'm feeling pretty good, man. And in all seriousness, to answer your previous question, it's good to see everybody get out of there. I'm among the contingent that believes the Jordan Love injury was just one of those freak things that happened, had a little to do with the field and everything, but definitely glad that everybody got out of there unscathed and healthy. And pretty much the case with any week 1 game in any season. We came out of there with some takeaways that, maybe there's some things that we still need to work on. Some of it we'll probably chalk up to the fact that this is the first time we've actually seen this full offensive starting unit work cohesively in an in-game environment, with them sitting out of the preseason and everything. So not many missed tackles, not many drop passes. And aside from what we saw from Jalen Hurts, didn't see a lot of turnovers and everything that, were the results of, I guess, ball handling, things of that nature. So you got to be thankful about that. But I expected a decent point total from the Green Bay Packers. I expected them to showcase Jordan Love a little bit. He was not as good as I thought he was going to be, but I expected a pretty tight game. I was hoping for a little less in the point department in 29 with all these new additions on defense,
Right.
and Fangio component. But again, that could be the result of the exact same thing I'm talking about. You got Bryce Huff, you got Nolan Smith, who didn't play a ton last year. We were kind of expecting Devin White to be the starting middle linebacker, and he didn't even travel because of injury. Nakobe Dean is now back in the spotlight. But pass rush has to be better. You can't have your only 2 sacks being from an off-ball linebacker. Be nice to see some turnovers with all this talent and everything we have in the secondary. CJ can't miss that tackle in the open field. And the problem with that is if there's not a penalty that extends a drive right before that, he's not even in that position. And we're probably talking about the Eagles getting the ball back. But as is the case with every team in the NFL, all 32 teams are right now thinking about week 2 and things that they have to adjust and get better at. And aside from maybe like 1 or 2 things here and there, I'd probably take the Eagles' problems over some of the problems that you see from other NFL offenses.
Yeah, my team had a lot of problems. But yeah, there's definitely watching the Eagles. I feel like we'll talk more about the coordinator changes that both teams have had to deal with this offseason. There's a period of adjustment there. But I don't know if you got to catch any of the Falcons Steelers game from afar, but I felt bad for Kirk Cousins out there. I felt like, man, I wish he was fully healthy. Couldn't go under center, couldn't run play action, and Caleb McGarry got his lunch ate by TJ Watt the entire game. Defense kept the Steelers out of the end zone. Nice to see Grady Jarrett back there. Matthew Judon made his presence felt, but lost to the Steelers 18-10 on a pair of 6 Chris Boswell field goals. Again, your team's on the winning side, mine not so much. We might be staring at 0-3, but we got to try to be optimistic here. The weather's still good.
Yeah. There are a lot of things to celebrate. One, when you mentioned one of the faces of the franchise, Grady Jarrett, returning in that sack and a half. I apologize if I'm wrong about this. I don't have the numbers in front of me. I think he had 2 additional hits on the quarterback, a couple of tackles for loss. So it's good to see him back and balling and healthy. I wonder about the health of Kirk Cousins. Is he back to 100%? That's a question. And how good is Kirk Cousins when he is 100%, to be honest with you? Are we just placeholding for Michael Penix? But at the same time, too, man, there are some things to be excited about. One of which being Bijan Robinson leading the team in both rushing and receptions, I believe, if that's correct. Second in receiving yardage, but first in receptions. He's a baller. I've always wondered if he was a little bit overrated. And I think I owe him an apology because I was pretty on the bandwagon, man, of saying that he was just a guy who looked really slow at the collegiate level, and he beat up on Big 12 defenses where nobody plays defense. And then as soon as he plays Alabama, all of a sudden he disappears. But Bijan's a baller. I worry about his long-term health, which, being obviously it being the position that he plays and that being a rough position. But I saw some positive signs from Tyler Algier. I think 7 yards per carry on 3 carries. I just don't think he got the ball enough. But at the same time, too, you're kind of forced into that position, John, when you are looking at 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, as opposed to 3rd and 2. So that also plays into it. But from a defensive standpoint, they kept the guys in the game. They were put in some pretty tough positions. You got to be more judicious with the football if you're Kirk Cousins. Can't throw 2 interceptions like Jalen Hurts. And if not for a great reception by Ray McLeod, I believe it was, at the end of the half, we're probably looking at 3 interceptions there.
Definitely.
But turnovers, I think it was said in the post-game press conference, like, it's hard to beat anybody when you do that. And it did cost them on this day. But walking into that one, man, talking about the Steelers, Justin, and some of this could be the component of the quarterback they played on the other side of the ball. But if you walked into that game and said that, we're going to walk out of this one and we didn't give up a touchdown, rushing or receiving, and if you walk out of that one saying, okay, they hit a few field goals, but most of those were over 40 yards. I think 4 of those were over 40 yards and a few were over 50. You got to like your chances, but on the offensive side of the ball, you got to make some things happen. And question for you is, Drake London and Kyle Pitts as good as we think they were?
I think they're still working on their growing connection there with Kirk Cousins. I think Drake London's ecstatic he's going to get the ball like right here all the time, and I tabbed him kind of being like the next Mike Evans coming out of USC. I think he has the potential to be that good. Pitts is a phenom, fantastic player at Florida, had a great first year there with the Falcons with Matt Ryan throwing the football. I wish he could block. That would be really helpful. Caleb McGarry could have really used his help yesterday, but really good to see him get a touchdown, the only touchdown of the game, wide open in the end zone. I think he and Cousins will be able to have a good rapport there. I think the long-term future here is with Penix, but again, the offense is kind of limited because Cousins can't really go under center. They're kind of running pistol, so they got to run out of pistol or shotgun. Again, this is like a Sean McVay disciple offense with Zach Robinson, so there's no fullback. You're just gonna 11 personnel everybody to death, and hopefully your team can play defense. But that side of the ball held up for us. Offense still has some questions, but again, I'm optimistic. One last question for you before we go on to our next topic. How are you feeling about the Eagles pass rush? I know you said you got 2 sacks, from an outside linebacker, but how's the defensive line looking right now?
I'm worried. It looks like it's going to take a little bit more of scheming some guys into position to make some sacks. Everybody was really excited about Nolan Smith's sack during the preseason and everything, but he lined up on a slot receiver to get it. He's so far outside, and he's so athletic that he can get around people and everything, but he doesn't seem to have that upper body strength and everything. A little light in the tail feather, if I could say that. But I'm worried. As I had mentioned earlier, your only 2 sacks of the game can't come from an off-ball linebacker and things of that nature. Shout out to Zach Ball, he balled out. But a little worried about the pass rush. Brandon Graham is aging. He got more sacks than Bryce Huff and Nolan Smith in the game 1. But with the combination of the guys that you have out there, Josh Sweat being a 2021 Pro Bowler, Brandon Graham being a former first rounder and a franchise legend, and the owner of the most famous strip sack in Super Bowl history.
Yes.
Nolan Smith being a great Georgia guy. I wonder if he's playing out of position, to be honest with you. I wonder if we should slide him back a little bit and maybe use his athleticism more and just stop trying to turn him into Hassan Reddick. But never believed that Bryce Huff was a better player than Hassan Reddick was. Kind of bummed out that he's not here. Also understanding, especially now that you're seeing what's going on with the Jets, why he isn't here. But the pass rush has to be better. And again, from a Vic Fangio style defense, one where I guess you can kind of drop some guys in the zone and use Jalen Carter as your Christian Wilkins from a year ago.
Right.
I was expecting a little bit more because Christian Wilkins was impressive at Miami. I think he exceeded his sack total by quite a considerable margin, his career high. And he also, I think, got somewhere around 40 pressures, if I'm not mistaken. And I think at least 20 of those were unblocked. So I was expecting Jalen Carter in this version of this defense to be the Christian Wilkins that we saw last year. And so far that hasn't happened, but it's Jalen Carter, and I believe in him. He was the 9th overall pick for a reason and probably should have been taken higher. It had not been for some unfortunate things that were said about him coming out of Georgia. But pass rush has to be better. And regardless of who you're playing in the NFL, you can't turn the ball over, and you can't let Kirk Cousins just stand back there because he's as good as anybody if you let him do that.
Yeah, I've got Jalen Carter right back there doing that stuff. He's fantastic. Also, Christian Wilkins, I think, is probably the best player, talent-wise, maybe to play at Clemson under Dabo. He was really underrated there. I also kind of wonder, with Nolan Smith's labor, maybe if he's still dealing with some stuff with the fallout from Georgia. But we got to move on here. Let's go around the perimeter with just some prevailing thoughts about the league week 1. Anything with any other teams besides our two that you kind of have a strong opinion about?
I can't believe the NFL let the Kansas City Chiefs get Xavier Worthy. I know we got a strong Chiefs bloodline here, fans out and everything, man, but I cannot understand why this league let the Xavier Worthy go to the Chiefs. That's scary. Mm-hmm. Lamar is still Lamar. And I long term still feel the same way about Lamar that I always did. Great talent. I wonder if he has that clutch gene that allows him to elevate to that next level when he needs to do that. Still hadn't seen that and everything. It's like when Lamar needs to be better and be clutch, he stays the same guy as opposed to elevating his game. But tougher road to the Super Bowl if you're in the NFC now. The Detroit Lions look good. The LA Rams push them to the limit. Tampa Bay is probably still the best team in the NFC South. So a lot of takeaways from week one, but it is week one, and we'll see what happens as we move into this next phase here.
Yeah, Xavier Worthy. I'm like, what are the Bills doing? Like, how do you let him go? Like, I mean, he may have been like a track star a little bit. We saw what he could do at Texas. Sitting on my bench on fantasy, getting all those points. Yeah, could have used some of that, but
right.
I guess my big takeaway is, coincidentally, the other guy behind me. I think Jaden Daniels has the potential to be really special with Washington. I really like the coaching he's got there with Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury. I saw Dan Quinn's like, we know you need to run, but we also want you to pass because you're really good. And I kind of feel Jaden Daniels could be some approximation of Lamar or Dak if he gets it all going. So I thought that was pretty positive there from the Commanders' defeat. On the other side of the coin, it may not be the Bengals' year right now. I can't believe they lost to the Patriots. They might be really missing Brian Callahan as OC now that he's in Tennessee.
That's true. That's true. I forgot about Cincinnati, but that's definitely true. But this is a league where it's quarterback driven, as you know, and it's been that way for a while. As long as you got Joe Burrow, you got a chance. And there are a lot of teams who, whether we want to admit this or not, with this constant push of parity in the NFL, we know who the teams are that are competitive and actually have a chance to win the Super Bowl. We know who aren't, and those teams have franchise quarterbacks. I don't believe in the Bengals for any reason. I just think they're cursed. But having Joe Burrow helps, so they'll turn it around.
He's great. I just think he's running out of sinew in his knee, so hopefully he can walk when he's 30. That would be great. We're gonna move on to the next topic. We're gonna talk about the ball, and we're gonna go back to the coordinators here with the changes that have happened both with the new Falcon staff and the new coordinator changes on Nick Sirianni's staff there in Philadelphia. Obviously, you have Kellen Moore coming over from the Cowboys to replace Brian Johnson. And then you got Vic Fangio coming in from Miami to replace Sean Desai. In Atlanta, obviously, Raheem Morris, Zach Robinson, and Jimmy Lake replace, see if I can do this, Arthur Smith, Dave Ragone, and Ryan Nielsen, who the Jaguars got an absolute steal there at DC. But how are you feeling about the new coordinator changes there in Philadelphia thus far?
I'm excited. I was a Shane Steichen guy, definitely a Frank Wright guy, but I was definitely a Shane Steichen guy. And the thing I think I most appreciated from him, even running the Nick Sirianni offense that I didn't see last year, was rather than try to push the ball down the field on every single occasion that you probably have, Shane was really good at just allowing Jalen to do a few things to get him comfortable, get him settled down or calm down if need be, and get him into a situation where he can get him in the groove. A couple of easy throws, a couple of easy completions, maybe a run here where he doesn't get smacked. But I really like Shane Steichen. Was really disappointed about losing him to the Indianapolis Colts. Jonathan Gannon, less a fan of, but I also take a lot of heat from this from Philadelphia Eagles fans. Jonathan Gannon is not as bad as people thought Jonathan Gannon was.
Right.
It's hard to come up with 70 sacks. It's hard to come up with that many turnovers. It's hard to send that many guys to the Pro Bowl and everything. And a lot of that was the result of what Jonathan Gannon was doing. And the worst case scenario for him was he just ran into a better coach and got out coached in the Super Bowl, and everybody saw it. Moving into last year, never was a fan of Matt Patricia. Haven't been a fan of Matt Patricia since Matt Patricia was in Detroit. Was bordering on, I don't know how I feel about Matt Patricia when Matt Patricia was in New England the first time.
Right.
But didn't know who Sean Desai was. Actually had to Google Sean Desai the first time I saw him. He alienated players to the point where, back to Hassan Reddick just decided, I'm just not going to talk to this guy. So now you got players who won't talk to defensive coordinators and things of that nature. That seems to be cleaned up. We talked about a lot about locker room chemistry and getting guys back on the horse here, and it appears that that's been the case. The locker room is a lot more healthy than it was. And I actually worried about Vic Fangio for that reason, with him being an old school coach and everything. And in this new school NFL where guys want to be patted on the back more often than kicked in the behind, I wondered how he gelled, but guys seem to like him. And we know the formula in the NFL. As long as they're winning, they're gonna enjoy that. But Kellen Moore, I think, is actually a tad, as much as I brag on Shane Steichen, I think he's actually probably a little bit better than Shane Steichen. With everything he did with Dak Prescott, making him look like an MVP guy, I expected to see a lot of that. It was great. The first time I saw motion in week 1, man, it was like, that's motion. I remember what that looks like. So just things like that, like some of that will calm Jalen down. Just seeing guys aren't moving while motion is happening, which tells me they're in zone as opposed to man. Those little things help. But Kellen Moore is a star. He was welcome with open arms when he got here. And after the first game of the season, the way we saw him use Saquon, very pleased with what we've seen from him so far. But it's an 18-week, 17-game grind, and we'll see how it goes from here on out.
For sure. I mean, like when you go to the Super Bowl 2 years ago, you've got like two just absolute rock stars at coordinator with Steichen and Gannon, both of which are like, immediate like hires to be head coaches. Steichen looks to be legit. I don't necessarily, not the biggest Anthony Richardson fan, but I really like what Shane Steichen is doing in Indianapolis. And You're absolutely right. Jonathan Gannon kind of got dumped on a little bit by Philadelphia fans. I think what he and Monty Austinfort are building in Arizona could be pretty good pretty soon. Like they play the Bills really tough, and he may be a total goober, but that's okay. It's football, and he seems to get his guys to buy in. Kyler seems to like him, and I think that's really all you can hope for there. And then you go, your two, you got, like Sirianni's got to replace two. It didn't work out, but again, I appreciate the fact he's like, okay, I got to get better coordinators here. Seems to be the case. I guess with the Falcons, man, it's like Raheem had been here on Dan Quinn's staff. We like him a lot, but we're trying to see if he can still be a head coach. Zach Robinson's like, he's like the next McVay. He might be. Jimmy Lake, I was not high on because he was a terrible head coach for the Washington Huskies, but pretty good defensive coordinator. And, maybe I'm an idiot. Maybe he's going to be great here. So, again, I'm a little more bullish on what's happening here in Atlanta. Arthur Smith wouldn't let Dave Ragone do much of anything, and I do miss Ryan Nielsen terribly. He's going to do fantastic things in Jacksonville. Probably be a head coach here pretty soon.
I like Ike Hilliard. I like Ike Hilliard when he was playing, man. Like, he could do a lot for Drake London. Like, if Ike Hilliard could make Drake London look like we're told Drake London is supposed to look like, then, that's a good move and everything. But I know that's probably not the most important coach on you guys' staff, but I just like seeing him doing this, man. Like, he was a tough dude. He was a tough dude.
Yeah, definitely. I remember watching him as a kid and everything. He's a tough dude out there. TJ Yates is on the staff too, former Texans quarterback. That can probably help too. But again, we got to give these things time. We may be bullish on our guys now. We'll see how we feel about that in November.
Right. Absolutely.
That's perfect. We're going to move on to our next topic. We're going to talk playoffs. You kidding me? So I had you guys winning the division. I had us winning the division. I think you said you had Tampa winning the NFC South. But how are you feeling about the Eagles' playoff chances at 1-0 right now, heading into week 2?
Anything less than a deep playoff run, I'm saying NFC Championship game. Anything less than that's a disappointment, man. Like, this roster is stacked to win it all. This roster is not stacked to get to the playoffs. This roster is not stacked to get to the playoffs and lose in the wild card round, probably to Tampa Bay again. This roster was built to get us back to the big game and actually win it this time. And anything less than an NFC Championship game appearance where you just lose to a team that's better is a massive disappointment. And that's probably going to be a disappointment by the people in this fan base in this city. But it's a team that's built to win. You could literally argue that this team has stars at every single position on the field, or guys who are potentially stars at every position on this field. They've taken the linebacker position seriously, which is something we've always complained about here. They went out and got 2 of the top 5 DBs in the draft. They got probably the best player in the draft last year. They got a guy who is massively huge and massively athletic in Jordan Davis. you spent money on and you invested draft capital into making the pass rush better. And again, that has to be better based on the investments you put into it. But the secondary is good. The safeties are good. We got guys who are on PUP like Sidney Brown, who we're excited about. We're finally excited about the second level of this defense. Dallas Goedert is probably going to be the fourth option in this offense behind A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Saquon Barkley. And Devontae, and for whatever reason, he's not going to get the ball as much as we probably would like for him to get the ball. But when he gets the ball, man, there aren't many tight ends in this league who can block and catch. You got guys who can block but can't catch. You got guys who can catch but can't block. And Dallas Goedert is one of those guys who can do both and pick up, some yak after catches and things of that nature. But deep playoff run is the expectation. I'm like you. I have them winning this division. Regardless of what we saw in week one, this is the Dallas Cowboys we're talking about. Do we still talking about Dallas Cowboys in the playoffs? Do we really think they're going to do anything when they get there? This is Dallas. This is what they do. But this team hasn't beaten Dallas and Arlington since 2017 when they won the Super Bowl. I think this is actually the year they actually finally get back to Texas and they actually beat them. From an NFC North standpoint, still think it's probably the Packers division to win. I like them better than Malik Willis more than I like. Sorry, Caleb Williams. But no, I'm thinking about the NFC North. Like, that's still Detroit's division. And I think this is still a team in the Green Bay Packers who can still get in. I misspoke about that. I apologize. But the South, you're getting one team to come out. That'll probably be Tampa Bay. Detroit and Minnesota, Dallas and Philly. And in the West, LA.
Oh, yeah, LA. I have some thoughts about
Francisco.
Yeah, San Francisco. They got a really tough schedule there. I had them like getting the 4 seed, going like 12-5 and everything like that. I would agree. Y'all are definitely the pick to win the NFC East. Don't really trust Dallas. Washington could be interesting. The Giants are going to be picking Carson Beck number 1 next year. They're going to be awful.
I'm hoping for some, and I'm saying that knowing that San Francisco is probably going to win the West, but some of that is hope.
Yeah.
San Francisco now. But at the same time, too, man, for whatever reason, that Super Bowl jinx is real. And we constantly see these teams give it everything they got to get to the big game, lose, and then you got to hype yourself back up for next year. And now you're the target and things of that nature. Like, I still don't know how I feel. I know he's great. I know he's better than I've given him credit for, but I still don't know how I feel about Brock Purdy. And I think this is the year where you have a fragile Christian McCaffrey and, historically fragile, not last year. And Deebo Samuel I just feel like something's going to go wrong in San Francisco.
Yeah, I can't stand Kyle Shanahan for obviously Atlanta Falcons reasons. So I'm never going to root for him in any capacity. But I would say, like, if I look across the board with trying to think exactly where I was trying to go with this. Brock Purdy, he's better than I thought, but obviously Christian McCaffrey, the injuries concern, took him number 1 in fantasy and just got a big goose egg week 1. That was not fun.
Yeah, that's tough.
Mm-hmm. So, obviously I don't think you're as bullish on Atlanta as maybe I am. I got the red and black colored glasses. I do think I feel like it's a 2-team race between them and Tampa Bay. Atlanta's schedule. Yeah, Carolina's not good. I thought Dave Canellis was going to make it work with Bryce Young, and they may have to draft another quarterback.
Yeah. They missed on that CJ Stroud thing.
I know. It was CJ Stroud. He is so underpaid. Like, he should get like a $40 million contract like tomorrow. It's crazy. But he's only in like year 2. So that is interesting there. I guess as far as how I'm feeling, got to get through the first 5 weeks of the season, probably split with Tampa and New Orleans. And from there, maybe we go 9-8 and make the playoffs and probably lose to like the Lions, Eagles, or 49ers in the first round. Or second round, however that goes.
We'll see, man. 9-8 could probably win you that division, but it's one team probably coming out, regardless of what happened with New Orleans last week. I know we all tend to overreact to what we just saw. New Orleans beat Carolina. We got to keep that in perspective. But I don't think any of us really had New Orleans on our radars and everything coming into this season. I still don't after week 1. But I trust Baker a little bit more than I trust the other quarterbacks in that division. And like you said, I think it'll come down to 2 teams and stuff, and maybe one game. And if you have a split or you just have a situation where Tampa Bay just gets one more game than Atlanta does, which is probably possible, because that was actually a game that I think Atlanta should have won at home, keeping Pittsburgh out of the end zone. You got Justin Fields on the other sideline, who I'm not a believer in, but that was probably one they probably should have lost in a division that's probably going to be won by a team with 9 wins. That's probably one that's going to come back to haunt them later.
Yeah, someone's got to win that division. Might as well be us. It could be Tampa, it could be New Orleans. It's not going to be Carolina, unfortunately. We'll see how that goes. We're going to move on to our penultimate topic with some Vick's Vapor Up. Is there anything like that you're noticing when covering the Eagles on like a day-to-day basis, Geoffrey, where you're like, y'all got to snap out of it? Like, this isn't that bad. Like, we got to kind of wake up here. Anything that's pervasive within Eagles fandom right now that people got to, snap out of it?
Good news or bad news we talking? I'd say probably on the bad news front, it's like calm down about the Jalen Hurts thing. I know he's turning the ball over way too often. I know he's through, if I'm not mistaken on this, man, I think we're talking about 19 interceptions in the first 45 games and now 17 in the last 18. But these are things that can be convinced. Jalen Hurts works entirely too hard not to get these things fixed. Every time we doubt him, he seems to overcome the odds and do something else. We saw that at Alabama. We saw that at Oklahoma. We saw that when he finally took over for Carson Wentz and stuff. So there's a lot of doubt here, and there's a lot of concern from Jalen Hurts. But everybody calm down. I think this is going to be fine. And Jalen is smart enough to know that the only team that seemingly can stop this Eagles offense is the Eagles offense. So they'll be more judicious with the football. It's okay to punt. It's okay not to force the ball into the end zone and when you have 3 points in your back pocket. So those things will get worked out. And I think once they do, and once we start to see a little bit more consistency from him and watch him calm down, I think we're going to be fine there. So there's a lot of is Jalen the guy? And even if Jalen wins the Super Bowl, we still don't believe he's the guy going around here. But again, you can do a lot worse at the quarterback position than Jalen Hurts.
Yes, producer Sean says he has a perfect passer rating against the blitz. Jalen Hurts is one of the very few people coming out of the college game who just had universal praise. Everybody at Alabama loved him. Everybody at Oklahoma loved him. Even like other teams, like, oh, this guy is great. He played for his dad, I think, growing up in Houston, son of a coach. He's getting the most out of his talent. Obviously, it's a more elevated role now. He's got to do more protections and stuff with Jason Kelce retiring. That's a big loss that you'll have to find a way to overcome. But I get what you're saying there. Jalen Hurts is gonna be fine because he's gonna be okay.
And you mentioned Cam Jurgens. He's probably the other one. There's the gloom and doom. Everything is wrong with the world now because Cam Jurgens is a center. Jason Kelce was great. And Jason Kelce is one of the best Eagles we've ever seen, which is crazy for a guy who was a 6th-round draft choice and 2 offensive linemen were taken before him. One of which was Danny Watkins, by the way. Was it Danny? I don't even remember his name. Danny Watkins, fireman, 27 years old or something like that.
Yeah, the guy at like Baylor that was like a top 40 pick. Or like, what the heck is this?
He was drafted before Jalen Kelce. That was that same draft. So he's a legend. Sometimes you'd rather be the guy that follows the guy as opposed to the guy that follows the guy. Right. I said that wrong. The guy that follows the guy that follows the guy. You'd rather be that guy than be the guy that follows the legend. But Cam Jurgens, bad snap, cost the team some points and led to a turnover. Another bad snap on the brotherly shove. We see that Jason was a lot more important to that play's success, and we gave him credit for. But Cam Jurgens is fine. Cam Jurgens is athletic. And I think he'll be fine as well. So some of the trepidation about how good he can be, I think, can probably be kind of like swept under the rug too. He's better than we give him credit for.
For sure. Like he was at Nebraska when they were at their absolute worst, and he was still like a guy that like, we were monitoring, like as a draft prospect. Like Nebraska's going like 3-9. They got the center up there named Cam Jurgens, who's pretty good. Yeah. So yeah. Definitely think that like there will be some drop off, but it's not going to be as precipitous as some people may think.
Right.
If I had to answer that question for Atlanta, it's got to give the coordinators time. We don't need to run Raheem Morris out after one game. We got to see what happens with him as a head coach. This is Zach Robinson's first time calling plays. This is Jimmy Lake's first time being a DC in the NFL. I still think the staff's going to be better than whatever Arthur Smith was just trying to control it, didn't score a touchdown, and he still won. I can't believe it. I'm so mad about that from last week. But yeah, got to give the coordinators time. Got to allow Kirk Cousins to stay healthy. But of course, if y'all blow up our offensive line or the Chiefs do it and he gets hurt and it's big Penix energy going forward, then that's what it's going to be. But we got to allow the pieces to fit together. The schedule was going to be tough to begin with, but like it can't be all gloom and doom. We've got too much right now with Braves country right now. Just a mash unit up there, but we'll get through it. We'll get through it. It's not going to be that bad. You guys at Dirty Bird Nation, you asked to get rid of Arthur Smith, and this is what you asked for. Just be patient.
Yeah. I think Zach Robinson's going to be fine, man. I like what he did in L.A. I like what he did with Matt Stafford. Matt Stafford got that Pro Bowl, and Zach Robinson had a lot to do with that. So Kirk Cousins just isn't better than Matt Stafford. Like, it's Kirk Cousins. I think that's part of it. But like you say, in time, I think this will be a very good coaching staff. And I think Falcons fans have a lot to be excited about, especially with the fact that Carolina's not going anywhere. They're going to continue to go backwards. And New Orleans just doesn't seem to be there. And if your biggest competition is Tampa Bay, I think you're going to have a shot for a few years.
Yeah, I feel like we're like 2 bad games in a row in New Orleans, and they're going to put Dennis Allen on the hot seat. He's probably at the hottest seat of anybody in the NFL. Derek Carr's never won a division before in his life, so I don't think that's going to happen anyway.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to move on to the last topic and a fan favorite on the show. We're going to do dudes remembering birds. So we're each going to remember some players from on each other's teams, and we're going to finish with a crossover here. So I'm going to remember Donovan McNabb. I grew up and I love Donovan McNabb. I'm a little bit younger than you, so I remember when the Eagles in the 90s, they were not that good. But then they drafted Donovan McNabb out of Syracuse. It was Andy Reid's first pick. That was a 5-quarterback draft. So I think it was Tim Couch went 1 to the Browns. Achilles Smith went 3 to the Bengals. Then Dante Culpepper and Cade McNown went a little bit later. And McNabb had the best career there. I know he's kind of polarizing there within Eagles fans, but he was stable. He really brought the team with it really helped set in tone, like over like the last century or the quarter century now, like Eagles have been solid, I think, because of a lot of the leadership he demonstrated when he first got there with Andy Reid.
Yeah. I love D-Mac, man. Browns actually helped us twice. They gave us Donovan McNabb and Carson Wentz. But Donovan was a great player, statistically the best Eagles quarterback that we've ever seen. Shame he couldn't win the big one.
Yeah.
Shame he couldn't get them over the hump and get in that Super Bowl and everything. I thought that 2009 season when they actually got to that championship game again and lost to the Arizona Cardinals, I thought that was the year. But statistically, can't say anything wrong about him. I think Donovan's thing here is Donovan he didn't have that Jason Kelce quality. He didn't embrace the city and become one of the city of Philadelphia's adopted sons like we saw Jason Kelce or Brian Dawkins do. I mean, in the offseason, he lived in Arizona. So I think the fact that he never really embraced the city or the fan bases, he probably could have walked out being one of the most beloved players of all time. But I think as we get further away from Donovan's playing career, I think we start to realize how special he was and how good he was. And some of that angst that was around when he left, I think it's starting to evaporate.
That's a good thing. We had a guy like that in the Atlanta Braves with Greg Maddux. You know, he slumbered in Las Vegas where he's from. Didn't really ingratiate himself too much within Braves country, whereas like Tom Glavine and John Smoltz, they moved in here. Chipper Jones, same sort of thing. Matt Ryan did that. A native of Philadelphia, is still probably living around here in Buckhead somewhere in Atlanta. But like, you know, you as a fan, you obviously want to hope people like the players in the team like ingratiate themselves with the fan base. But you know, this is a business, and but at the end of the day, you're absolutely right. Though this guy did a lot for the Eagles at a very important time. That I think in time we will grow to appreciate him more and more.
Yeah. On my side, man, I think I'm gonna go with Deion. I can't talk about the Atlanta Falcons and not talking about Deion Sanders. What do you have, like 3 Pro Bowls there? I personally, and people laugh at me when I say this, I believe he could have been a Hall of Famer in baseball and football. Nobody wants to rock with me on that one, but I love Deion Sanders, man, to the point where even with him being a Cowboy for 5 years, even with him leaving the Cowboys to go to the Washington Redskins at the time and do that for a season, I've always had to watch him on the other sideline. We got him one time. It was like a 40-8 Eagles win over the San Francisco 49ers. And that was their last loss of that Super Bowl year when they picked Deion up. So I've always had to watch him on the other sideline, but the culture influence, just being a cool dude, except for that Jerry Curl and that song he put out, that MC Hammer dance. Aside from all that stuff, Deion is still one of my faves, and actually the lone reason I watch Colorado football now. So Deion Sanders is my guy.
I've interviewed Deion Sanders. He's my all-time favorite player. Very little growing up. I remember him watching the Falcons with my mom and dad and everything like that. Then he went and signed a one-year free agency deal with the 49ers, who were in the division at the same time, because Taylor Smith's like, nah, you need to leave. We don't know what we're doing. And then he goes to the Cowboys and continues to be excellent. Really encompassed a lot of the swagger and helped really made it like the Falcons like low-key cool at times. Like, with like the from like 91 to 98, like that, like this, like that was Deion Sanders right there. And yep. I do agree. He was really special on the baseball diamond. I think if he would have focused on that, he could have possibly gone to the Hall of Fame as well. There were certain traits there that he had, but he's one of one, and it's really difficult, me covering college football on fansided.com, to be like, okay, Colorado, I don't know if this is going to work, but like, it's my favorite player, but he's not the best coach right now, but he was at Jackson State. So it has me in a pretzel right now, but I'll always rep Deion Sanders, what he meant for this franchise, even though he only played here for 5 years.
Okay. I can rock with it.
Got to go on to next Eagle, Fletcher Cox. I loved Fletcher Cox, and I hated playing against him. He just destroyed Matt Ryan. The guy could do nothing against Fletcher Cox. I believe he played for Dan Mullen there at Mississippi State, and that was kind of when Mississippi State kind of got pretty good there under him. First round pick, just recently retired. But the problem is, like, he played in the same NFC with Aaron Donald and then Grady Jarrett. Those three guys are fantastic. Aaron Donald was one of one, but like Fletcher Cox, I just felt like that guy could blow up a playbook better than anybody else. Like, I feel like you have a great idea with what you want to do offensively. He doesn't care. He's going to make plays happen, and he's going to do good things for the Eagles. Fun to watch from afar. Hated playing against him. He was that good.
He's a Hall of Famer. I have no qualms about saying that. 6 Pro Bowls, NFL 2010's All-Decade Team. I think PFW AR rookie team member when he came out. And as you mentioned, 3-time second All-Team Pro because of Aaron Donald. Like, there was a long stretch of time where Fletcher Cox was seen as the second best defensive tackle in the league, and that's just what it was because Aaron Donald was walking around. And to play second fiddle to Aaron Donald, there's no reason to hang your head about that. But he's really somebody that we really like around his parts, and he's somebody that we really love, based on the fact that we watch his maturation and some things of that nature. I wish there would have been times where he would have decided to get his own girlfriend instead of like messing with everybody else's. But his personal life aside and everything, Fletch was one of those guys who was kind of the quiet leader, wanted to lead by example. And as we saw him towards the end of his career, he realized, I got to talk. So Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, I think when they're staring back at their career and everything, I think a lot of the success that they have, they'll attribute to having had Fletcher Cox as a teammate. So we love him. He'll be in the Eagles Hall of Fame. He'll most definitely be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame one day.
We kind of had a guy like that in Atlanta who was pretty quiet. Don't know if you watch football away from the work with Julio Jones, a wide receiver. Again, similar player, different positions. But you also want to remember another wide receiver of Atlanta Falcons lore. Who is that?
Bad Moon Rising, man.
Yeah.
I mentioned it, Deion, and I didn't think about this till right now, but I'm sitting here thinking about their fist fight. Both of these guys get in the fight. They both should have been ejected. Nobody leaves the game. Everybody knew, like, everybody's here to see Andre Rison and Deion Sanders. Like, the 49ers and the Atlanta Falcons are taking the back seat to these two guys today. So these guys can fight, and we're still not going to kick them out. But Bad Moon Rising, regardless of some of the jokes we tell about him being a journeyman and stuff, I think life is unfair sometimes because I can't believe that Chris Carter and Randy Moss and Andre Johnson and all these guys don't have Super Bowl rings, but Andre Rison does. So life doesn't work out the way you think it should work out sometimes. But yeah, man, one heck of a player when he was in Atlanta. And without bringing up something too traumatic and probably like the most horrible way you can end this and stuff like that, just a guy's guy, like having your girlfriend burn your house down because you didn't buy her some shoes. And you walk in the court like, this is my lady. We're not going to press charges. She's not going to jail. We're going to work this out internally. That's some street stuff for your behind. And I'm not condoning or making jokes about, things in relationships that probably shouldn't happen and things of that nature. But it was just the way he went about his business that I think was fortunate. And rest in peace to Left Eye.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
It was just the way he went about his business. And he was a much better player in Atlanta than he's given credit for. A few Pro Bowls. I think he had like an All-Pro nomination or two, didn't he? In Atlanta.
Yeah. The peak of his career was in Atlanta. I was like looking back at like his career. You're absolutely right. You never really know what's going to happen. So a great career at Michigan State, gets drafted by the Colts, and the Colts are just beyond screw at this point. They trade him, and like Chris Hinton, who should be in the Hall of Fame too. The guy that the Colts traded with the Broncos for John Elway. So they could draft Jeff George, who made it to Atlanta and probably came after Rison and everything. I'm looking across the board and I'm like, oh yeah, he played on the 96 Jags, who are pretty good, and then trades to the Packers, wins the Super Bowl, finished his career with the Chiefs and Raiders. But he was a little bit before my time, but like he was right in the same receiving core with Terrence Mathis kind of came after him, and he was a big fan for me as well. But everything I look at Deion Sanders and Andre Rison, like that 91 to like 94 era of Atlanta Falcons, kind of just shows what we can do. We got a lot of talent, and we don't always know what to take advantage of it, but it's fun. And I don't think he gets the credit he deserves here. He was excellent for
I actually looked it up. Like first team All Pro in 90, then 3 straight from 91, 3 straight second team All Pro designations from 91 to 93, and then 4 Pro Bowls while he was there. So he was a great Atlanta Falcon.
Yes. And we're going to finish up the program with a perfect crossover, one of the most electrifying players of all time. We're going to talk about Michael Vick. When he got drafted, I was like in I think I was like 5th grade, 6th grade. In the 02 team, I was in 7th grade. I literally made I was learning how to do PowerPoint, and I literally made like a slideshow about how awesome Michael Vick was, and I got an A on it. So I did that in school and everything like that. I remember watching, I think it was like the Packers game where he beat Brett Favre in Lambeau. No one ever won the postseason there. I was at a bar mitzvah. It was crazy. The 04 season was fantastic. Probably his best year in Atlanta. Lost to your Birds there in the NFC Championship game. And then obviously legal matters ruined his career briefly, but he was able to reinvent himself there with Andy Reid and the Eagles after being incarcerated. What was your kind of thoughts about like him joining the Eagles at the time, and what was it like having him revitalize career there with Philadelphia?
I mixed feelings. I kind of knew when he arrived. I didn't know how it was going to happen, but I knew at some point Donovan McNabb was leaving and Michael Vick was going to take over as a starting quarterback. And as great a talent as he was, I still also had this feeling where it was like, we're never going to win a playoff game as long as Michael Vick's quarterback. So you kind of got that. He's responsible for some of 2 of my favorite Eagles memories, that comeback against the Giants in 2010. And then earlier that same season, the Monday Night Massacre against Washington. That one just opened with a bang with the bomb to Deshaun Jackson. But heck of a talent, man. I like him more as a guy now than I did when he was playing, things of that nature. In the African-American community, we all had Michael Vick jerseys. Some of the stigma that existed with black quarterbacks and things of that nature. So we all rooted for him. I had a Michael Vick jersey. It was a pleasure to see him play in Philadelphia, but you just knew that it was just like, once the athletic ability was gone, we just not going to be able to beat people with the arm on a consistent basis. But he was definitely fun to watch. And I loved every contribution that he made to the Philadelphia Eagles and stuff. And as you mentioned, even with the mistake, I think it was a good life lesson because he became one of the best spokespersons the ASPCA ever had after that mistake. So it's a good testament, even though some people still don't have nice things to say about him, which I think is unfortunate. I think in a world like this, in a country like the one we live in, second chances are important. And I think he made the most of his, and I think he should be proud of that. And I think we should celebrate him a little bit more than we do for that same reason. Got knocked down, picked himself off the canvas, and that's what being American is all about.
Absolutely, yes. As a human being, you're allowed to grow. You're allowed to adapt. You're allowed to get better. That's the beauty of life here. And I'm very thankful that he has been embraced, with the Atlanta community, because people were heartbroken. People loved him. They loved him. He was the biggest ticket in town for about 6 years there. And obviously, it's taken some time to kind of mend fences and fix wounds and everything like that. But I would give Arthur Blank a lot of credit for basically saying, no, he's one of us, and he's always got a place here in Atlanta with whatever he needs. I think he's doing fantastic in his broadcasting career. Again, you're allowed to pick yourself up and continue to be the best person you can, regardless of the circumstances.
Absolutely.
Well, this was the latest episode of the Blog and Dirty podcast. You can follow me, John Buhler, on Twitter at Buhler118. Jeff, plug whatever you need to with Inside the Eagles and everything you got going on.
InsideTheEagles.com, IGGLES. If I'm pointing at it right, that's the X handle there. Like us on Facebook. It's a fun, interactive social community and things of that nature. We're very proud of the work we do. We've always tried to keep it as fun as possible. We always try to keep it informative as well. And I might be biased, but I don't think there's a better Eagles publication out there. You probably find some that are just as good, but you're not going to find one that's better. So we have a lot of fun talking about the Birds, and it's a dream come true for me. Lifelong Eagles fan. I've been here since Randall Cunningham was walking around. So to be able to wake up every day, walk downstairs, go to games, and just talk about this team and get paid a lot of money to do that, it's been a dream come true for me, man. So I appreciate you for having me on, and you're definitely a great friend of mine, and love what you're doing at Blog and Dirty. The sites never look better, and just wish you the best of luck as well.
Yeah, definitely. I remember we were when we met in Orlando a couple of years ago. You're like, yeah, I've been with the Eagles since Randall Cunningham, and I'm like, oh heck yeah, like that's like the precursor to Vick and everything like that. I'm like, this guy was fantastic. I remember him with the '98 Vikings and everything like that. But thanks again for coming on.
Appreciate it, man. I appreciate it.
All right, this was the Blog and Dirty podcast.